Welcome into this edition of Armchair Quarterback. I'm David Allen, joined as always by Coach Guy Suttle and also our buddy Tim Foster sitting in with us this week. As you saw on the screen as we came in today, a little different, a little somber note, the passing of longtime head coach the Shelby Golden Lions, Jim Taylor. He later became athletic director for the county. He is a member of the Cleveland County FCA Sports Hall of Fame, the High School Athletic Association Hall of Fame, the North Carolina Athletic Directors Hall of Fame. And Coach, I know you coached with him for a number of years there at Shelby High School. We can't go down too many stories and whatnot, but just a sad day for the community to lose Coach Taylor.
Yeah, and you know, with Coach Taylor, you just want to remember the good days. I mean, the good times that we had together, coaching together. Always had the right word at the right time. Some of his sayings, the man on top of the mountain didn't fall there. You know, you had to work at it. So he always had wisdom in that regard. Going to be greatly missed.
Absolutely. The man on top of the mountain didn't fall there. Boy, that's a good one, Tim.
That is.
I know your dad worked with Coach Taylor. Wow. We were talking about that before we started today, and a lot of memories there with him as well.
A lot of memories. We could do a whole hour and a half show on C19 about Coach Jim Taylor. As great as a coach he was, a championship coach, a legend. He was a mentor. I know, David, you had so many stories, and as my dad, Andy, who interviewed him in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you were talking about, you remembered some of those even in classrooms there at Shelby High School. He just talked about, in his mind, the greatest to coach at Shelby. He was an unbelievable coach, and I just think about, David, his very last game. Where was he at with the Golden Lions in a state championship game against Clinton, 1997? That says a lot. He was a phenomenal coach and a great man.
Absolutely. So our prayers and thoughts go out to the family. Brad and Greg, his two boys, and Cheryl, longtime spouse, and we just, again, thoughts and prayers to them in the passing of Coach Taylor. We will get into, and let's talk about our football games from Friday night. The Burns Bulldogs, as we always go in alphabetical order, were on a bye Friday night, and the Crest Chargers might as well have been on a bye, Tim. I mean, I tell you what, Hunter Hush, you said hung with them for just a thought, and then all of a sudden it got away, and it got away fast.
It was kind of a crazy game. Yeah, you know, it was 14-0. Crest got out 2 quick scores, and then all of a sudden Husk gets a big pass play, and I know we'll see those. Big thanks to Holly Hamrick, our producer today. It's 14-7, 3 minutes to go, Coach Suttle, and with 4 minutes to go. And then, Guy, and you've watched a lot of football, what about Crest scored 34 points in a 3-minute stretch of the game? That usually ends a game pretty quickly there, Coach.
Yeah, it does. And you know, again, we're not surprised at the final outcome of it, but like you were saying, how quick it actually happened. It's just a testament to the Crest offense and the defense as well, and special teams, all 3 phases.
And I just want to say we give the video credits there, and let me just say David Grayson and Ronald McCraw,
they're great.
They've been videoing Crest for 30 years now at least, and they helped me back in the day on Headline News. So just a shout out to those guys. But Tim, you know, one of the things though that's you know, you want to get out of these games is injury-free, and unfortunately for Crest, that's not the case.
Yeah, you saw Jason Black score early in the ball game, but he ended up with a collarbone issue, a break. We think he'd be out probably till maybe round 2 or 3 of the playoffs, and you hate to see that. There were several players that got injured in the county the other night. Unfortunately, we're at that time of the year where that's going to happen a little bit, and you hate to see that. But, yeah, you know, for Crest, this was this stretch right through here where Huss went, you know, I was thinking we might go into halftime, David. It's 21-7, and Huss, hey, you're on the road. This could be a battle for Crest. And all of a sudden, it becomes 21-7, 28-7, 35-7, 42-7, and all of a sudden you look up with about 15 seconds after this interception, David, and it's 48-7 going into halftime.
Well, you know, I think I mentioned that I was on a text thread with Coach Shields, Jeremy Shields, principal at Crest, and he was just like, "Why don't they run the ball? They're giving us points." And anyway, big win for the Chargers. What was it, 62-7, the final score there? Crest just way too much for Hunter Huss on Friday night. Kings Mountain, meanwhile, we knew that we said last week, Ashbrook is that other team in the Big South, Coach, and Boy, they showed that they were the other team in the Big South on Friday night.
You know, it really, this one may have been more of a surprise than anything. The number of points that they were able to put up on Kings Mountain's defense, because even throughout this year, that was a mainstay for Kings Mountain, was their defense. And I'm telling you, they just took them to the woodshed on that deal.
Well, you know, and what we've said, you know, Tim, is the other teams outside of Crest, Kings Mountain, South Point, there's always one, but there's always somebody on a roller coaster. And you don't know if it's going to be like Hunter Huss was in the valley of that roller coaster, or whether it's Ashbrook at the top of the hill.
Ashbrook, it's for real this year. You know, there's been a lot of talk through the years that this was going to be the year for Ashbrook. I'm talking about over the last 15 years. You know, this is going to be their year. This is going to be the year. Well, guess what, folks? This team's for real. They scored, think about it, they scored 43 straight points against Kings Mountain after it was 7-0. And I think David and Guy Kings Mountain, or excuse me, Ashbrook, they don't believe, they just don't talk that, hey, we're going to win. They believe they're going to win. They believe that, and remember, they got a pretty favorable home schedule. South Point, they've already beat. Kings Mountain, we know they got Crest down the road. And I think a lot of it has to do, David, with the fact they've got, think about this, 3 wins over South Point in the last calendar year. They got a win over Northwest Cabarrus. And I would even say, Coach Suttle, what about that trip to the 4th round last year? How much do you think that has helped them out?
Well, and we've talked about this before, especially when you have a good JV team and you bring those JVs up to varsity and you go 4 more weeks of the season, that even though they may be cannon fodder or scout team, that gives those JV kids, that gives those young kids 4 more weeks, another month of football practice. And we saw it with Shelby, the years that Shelby was going to the state championship each and every year, and they're still making deep runs now. I mean, that gives those JV kids an extra month to 5 weeks of practice. That's immeasurable, and they learn how to win, because you're not going 4 and 5 weeks deep if you're not winning. So they're learning how to win and how to approach the game, what the mental preparation is about. They're learning all of that during that time period.
And David, I would just say the final thing, when you look at the final stats, what about Ashford? 250 on the ground against Kings Mountain's defense. They just, Kings Mountain didn't have enough possessions. When they got behind, that was it.
Well, some of you, if you don't know and you didn't see, you're going to be shocked when the score comes up on the board. Tim already alluded to it, but there it is. Ashbrook 43-7 over the Kings Mountain Mountaineers, and that's got to be, outside of that East Lincoln game in the playoffs a couple years ago, that's got to be one of the worst beatings that Kings Mountain's had in quite a while.
It's one of the biggest surprises of the year for me, and it's either telling us that Ashbrook's for real, which I think they are, or, it's just saying maybe it was a tough night for the Mountaineers. And who knows? Both these teams are 6A. They could see each other again.
Absolutely. No question about it.
And like you're saying, it could have been a bad night or a tough night for Kings Mountain.
Could have been.
But Ashbrook had a lot to do with that tough night.
Absolutely.
They've always been physical for, like you were saying, for the last 15 years, we've talked about just how physical they were. In 2010, when Crest went to the state championship, it was that first round game that Crest scored with 30 seconds left to go in the game to escape the first round.
Yeah.
Or they don't even make it to the state championship. So that tells you what type of team can show up for Ashbrook. Right now, they've shown up every week.
No question about that. All right, game of the night in the county and it might have been in the state for all I know.
I think it was, yeah.
Shelby goes over to Lincolnton, and I'm going to tell you, Coach, it's been a while since I had sat in the stands on the Lincolnton sideline. I think the last probably half dozen times I'd been in that stadium, I had called the game on the radio and had been up in the booth, or maybe even back in the headline news days, was down on the sideline. But didn't like my stands sitting over there. I mean, I don't like that, and I didn't like it on Friday night because Lincoln came to play.
Yeah, I think what has happened to Lincoln and is they realize that they can play with this group. Shelby goes down, scores, and misses the extra point, and Lincoln comes back and scores, gets the extra point. It just Lincoln's like, hey, we can play with these guys. And I think that confidence, plus I think this is a new wrinkle too with the linebacker lining up in Wildcat and running the ball that way is a new wrinkle for Lincoln. But I was just impressed that Lincoln's way of not quitting. For me, David, and you were there, I was there, the turning point of the game is Shelby goes down and scores to make it 20-13 at the half. And, you know, I looked at somebody that was beside me and I said, Shelby's going to get the opening kickoff of the second half. They take it down and score, the game's over. And they fumble the kickoff.
On the 1 yard line.
On the 1 yard line. So that to me was the turning point of the game. That makes it a 20-20 ball game. And here we are with, you know, less than 24 minutes to play. And we got to go.
In addition to that turnover, the turnover going in, Shelby turned it over at the Lincoln 1 yard line as well. So you had two big turnovers for Shelby on the night, and they both led to Lincoln touchdowns. Lincoln then, as you saw in the video clip, lined up to go for two after scoring the touchdown in the first overtime. They got it on the quarterback keeper. And I'm going to tell you what, that kid was small. He was like 5'8", 165, but he was athletic. Yeah. And, Tim, they really didn't have an answer for him.
No, they really didn't. And, you know, when you looked at the stats, and Guy mentioned it a little bit, you looked at stats, and you would have thought Shelby would have won this game by 7 or 10 points. But the turnovers were the difference. Lincoln won the turnover battle. They're playing power ball now in Lincoln, and they've got the belief they can win this game. Remember, they went really a decade and had not really been much of a factor in 2A or 3A. But the thing that I really thought, David, at the end of that ball game, even though Lincoln had won and it was a great football game, not so sure that we didn't see the two best teams in Western North Carolina in 3A. I think a rematch will be coming. And to beat Shelby twice in one season, if that does happen, will be a big challenge.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. It may not be good for Shelby this week, but I think it's good for North Carolina that Lincoln football's back. I look for these two teams to meet again. Great game Friday night.
One of the big issues for Shelby in the game was penalties. Coach 13 for 102, and through 7 games, Shelby 737 yards in penalties.
Yeah, and you know that's something that Coach Will Banks, you can't give up that kind of yardage. I mean that's yardage that you cannot get back. I don't care how great an offense you have, you're not going to be able to overcome. You know that if you think about it, it's a 1,400-yard swing. Instead of you gaining 700 yards, you lost that many. It's just going to, you know, we've always said in the Big South, and we've talked about it, Crest, Kings Mountain, South Point +1. In this conference, we knew going in it was going to be Burns, Shelby. Let's see who the next one is going to be. And that one was Lincoln, and it's on a good year for Lincoln. So it's going to be a good league moving forward. Also, like Tim was bringing up, they could see each other again in the playoffs.
Yep.
They have to go back to Lincoln, but hey, Shelby's been there, so they know what to expect.
And David, I would just say before you go to break, I look for Coach Wilbanks and those penalties to start coming down, especially as we get into playoff time, and that will make a big difference. A game like that the other night, Shelby probably wins that one by a touchdown if you take those away.
No question about that. There's the final score on that one. Shelby loses in overtime, 35-34 to the Lincoln Wolves. Lincoln now undefeated in the conference, and they've got Stuart Kramer and West Lincoln. I don't see either one of those teams sneaking up and beating them. If it is one of those two, it would be Stuart Kramer. They have been the most competitive on the season, so we'll kind of see how that goes. When we come back, we'll look ahead to what's coming up this week for our 4 county schools. We'll talk a little college football. Gardner Webb won again. And then, hey, the Panthers beat my Cowboys. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're watching Armchair Quarterback.
Cakes and cookies, toys and gifts. Christmas at your fingertips.
It's the shopping event of the season, the Southern Christmas Show, November 13th through 23rd at the Park Expo and Conference Center. Experience Santa's workshop, brimming with timeless childhood delights, twinkling lights, and festive cheer. Buy tickets early and save at southernchristmasshow.com.
Let's go to the Southern Christmas Show.
All right, welcome back to our second segment of Armchair Quarterback. I'm David Allen along with Coach Guy Suttle and our normal producer Tim Foster sitting in with us this week. Each week we talk about our Cleveland County High School teams. We'll talk about what they've got coming up this week, and let's start with the Burns Bulldogs. They're coming off a bye, and you come off a bye, Coach, and you get the chair of alignment.
Yeah, I mean, wow. It could be that the off week in practice was tougher than the game that you have this week. I hate to say that, but anyway, Burns is going to get well this week. They got well last week with their time off, and they're going to have a ability to come out and work on all the basics that they worked on last week in the off week and take it out on Cherville.
Got a chance to see Coach David Devine twice this week. I saw him at a volleyball match on, I guess that was Thursday night, then saw him at the Shelby Lincoln game on Friday night. So he had a nice off week, and now he gets ready for the chair of alignment. Next game up on the list is the Crest Chargers. North Gaston. You see the record; they're 1-7. Tim, I mean, they just put the hammer down on a 5-2 Hunter Huss team. It's going to be UGLY on Friday night.
It is going to be ugly. If you're Coach Greg Lloyd, you want to have senior night. Don't get there late if you're a Crest fan, because there's going to be a lot of highlights. But you want to get out of there healthy, because you know what's coming next Friday night, and it'll be ugly. And there'll be a running clock. I would say probably early to mid second quarter, Coach.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the senior athletes will be recognized on Friday night for their accomplishments over their high school careers, and that's a big opportunity for them. Not so much for North Gaston. I mean, I'm sure they see a lot of homecoming games or have seen a lot of homecoming games this year, and they're going to see senior night, and it's just going to happen really, really fast.
Really fast.
One thing that makes it good for the Crest Chargers in that it is North Gaston. I'm sure Coach Lloyd is having to redirect and rethink a few things with the injury in the offensive backfield. North Gaston will be a good opponent to try those new schemes out or new personnel out. So there is a positive to it.
And we'll take that positive, but that's about the only one we'll take. Kings Mountain, however, does not have a cupcake on the schedule this week.
Yeah.
They're coming off their worst loss of the season by far to Ashbrook, and oh, by the way, they have to go to Belmont to take on the South Point Red Raiders. And Tim, South Point's record, we know they lost to Crest bad. They lost an earlier game in the season, but to Ashbrook.
Yeah.
But this one could be a tough game for Kings Mountain.
We talked about Kings Mountain's getting in that tough stretch of the season, and we saw that with a tremendous Ashbrook team. The only thing that concerns me a little bit for Kings Mountain, when you look at I saw some stats on the road defensively. Even though they beat Burns, they gave up 34 points. They went to Charlotte Catholic, gave up 28 points. Last week on the road, that was at Catholic. Of course, giving up 43 points on the road to Ashbrook last week. Now you go to another tough Redbone offense with South Point. That defense is going to really have to step up. What's the mindset after last week? That's going to be key, because, again, think about it. You got South Point and Crest, 2 of your last 3 games, and you don't want to be going on a downward spiral heading into the state playoffs, even though this is still a very good Kings Mountain team. They have not been good defensively, though, on the road. I'm watching for that Friday.
Coach, he makes an interesting point about the on-the-road home versus, being on the road. As a coach, what difference does it make? It's a football field.
Well, and Tim, I'm not disagreeing, but
Sure.
I can remember Crest teams that actually did better on the road because
Sure.
they didn't have as many distractions.
Yeah.
When you're playing at home and the band is warming up, the cheerleaders are warming up, the people are tailgating around you. Some of that can be distracting. Whereas when it's an away game, you get on the bus and you ride there and you get dressed and you go out and you play. There's not as much going on around you. So I'm not sure what's affecting Kings Mountain.
And I'm just mentioning statistically, David,
Oh,
is
yeah.
what I'm saying.
No,
and I totally agree. It's been interesting to see that this year, which we hadn't seen in years past with them.
The concern that I have with with Kings Mountain going into South Point is how many yards Ashbrook was able to rush against Kings Mountain.
Yeah.
In excess of 250 yards
Yeah.
rushing. Concern would be a big concern for Kings Mountain. It would be different if Ashbrook threw for 400 yards or something like that and beat Kings Mountain the way they did. But to rush the ball 250 yards, score that many points, and now you're going to go against the South Point team that's 99% run. And in a completely different offense. So that's what's concerning to me, or for Kings Mountain, is that you didn't play the run very well last week, and now you're going to play another running team on the road.
All right, so Kings Mountain with their hands full at South Point on Friday night. And, of course, I don't need to say Kings Mountain take a good group. There'll be a packed house over there for that one, no question about it. Final game of the week, Shelby taking on East Gaston, and this one's at Shelby. Golden Lions, need to bounce back off of the loss to Lincoln, obviously. And East Gaston's a pretty good opponent for that, Tim.
Yeah, if you're Shelby, you want to take care of business, which you will Friday night, and you're rooting for Stuart Kramer to knock off Lincoln and to maybe somehow make this a three-way tie at the end of the year for the conference. We'll see if that's going to happen. That's going to be tough the way Lincoln is playing, but Shelby comes back big on Friday night, David.
All right, so that's the 4 games for this week. Again, Burns against Cherryville. Hopefully, Cherryville's changed their helmets since they played against Shelby. The black helmets with the cherries on front, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Crest taking on
North Gaston.
North Gaston.
Yeah, I think we got a graphic for this thing.
I about already forgot who it was.
Yeah.
Kings Mountain, South Point, and Shelby. There it is, at East Gaston. So, again, some of these are going to be ho-hummers. A couple of them are going to be knockdown dragouts, but get on out there and support your local team. Got about 8 minutes left to do our college football segment, and so let's start with our winners and losers. And Coach, who's your winner for this week?
I'm going to have to go with Texas. And the reason that I'm going with Texas is we've kind of been on them the last couple of weeks. And, they had a big win against a 6th-ranked Oklahoma team that Venables, the head coach, is a defensive guy. We all remember him from his days at Clemson when Clemson was winning national championships. So that's a big win for Arch Manning to have a good game, control the game, lead the team. I thought that was a big win was Texas.
Tim, who's your winner
Well,
this week?
it's got to be Indiana. I mean, you go to Oregon and get the win. Highest ranking ever this week, David, in the AP Top 25, number 3. I mean, they got a favorable schedule possibly to run the table. And I'm going to throw a couple of quick bonuses in there. The Gardner-Webb running Bulldogs, 4-2. I know you'll talk a little bit more about their matchup with UT Martin. And I'm going to even have to throw a high school team in. Highland Tech ended a 2-year drought in conference play and beat Bessemer City, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I just can't imagine
I know,
how bad Bessemer City has to
can't
be
believe
for
that.
Highland Tech to have won that game. But needless to say, a couple of interesting games on the weekend. I think LSU, South Carolina, a lot of talk about the officiating in that one. Georgia and Auburn, a lot of talking about the officiating in that one. So, I guess that's I'll start with the losers. I'm going to say that's my loser of the week is the officiating group. We just talked about the penalties against Shelby. I'm not going to say those are, that's, officiating there, but I'm just saying officials are continuously in the spotlight after ball games are over, either because most of the time it's because the people think they were terrible, not because they were good. And so I'm going to say that's my loser of the week as far as college football is concerned. Coach, who's your loser of this week?
I got to go with Florida State. I mean, the way they started the season and everybody was hyped up, ready to go. We know how they started last season. It was complete opposite of that, 180 degrees different. And then all of a sudden, boom, they've hit a wall, and I believe it's 3 in a row that they've lost. So I'm going to say Florida State. They had too good of a start to lose 3 in a row, 3-3 now.
All right, Tim, and your loser?
Yeah, to add what Guy's saying, 8 straight conference losses for Florida State in the ACC, that's crazy. But Penn State, David, they were 21-point favorite against Northwestern. Losses to Oregon. Obviously, you had that game won. It looked like in overtime. Lost to UCLA, lost to Northwestern. Your coach is gone now. It's going to be interesting to see who takes over there. So they're a big loser of the week. And, I was just quickly glancing at this week's schedule. Georgia Tech, Duke, and Ole Miss, Georgia are the two that really fascinate me the most for this weekend, David.
Yeah, Georgia Tech has slowly moved up the poll. They're up to 13 now. It's one of those tough things. If you don't start in the top 25, to get up in the top 5 is about impossible, regardless of how well you play.
Yeah.
And so Georgia Tech, really, the only thing they can do is win the conference championship, and then they possibly got a chance at the playoffs at the end of the season. Other than that, though, go ahead.
Can Miami and Georgia Tech play for the
ACC.
championship?
Yeah.
I don't know the divisions well enough. I couldn't.
I think it's possible, but I think, like David said, they probably have to win out, and again, Georgia Tech, I think Duke's going to be ready.
Yeah.
But Georgia Tech's playing great football this year.
No question about that. All right, let's switch it up and let you guys, man, I'm telling you what, my phone blew up yesterday afternoon. All these Carolina Panther fans, knowing I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, getting on my case. Well, it is what it is. Cowboys lose 30-27. Panthers did a great job of running that clock down and kicking that field goal at the end so that the Cowboys and Dak Prescott didn't have another chance. So kudos to the Carolina Panthers for a good job and pulling that one off yesterday.
Yeah, and you know what I'm going to say, but I got Olsen to back me up. He was doing the color on TV, and
Yeah.
he said the Panthers have the lowest payroll for an offensive line in the NFL, and to do what they did, to just be on the field and win the game against Dallas is remarkable, really. If you go back and you think about it, I've been harping on that offensive line for the Panthers for a long time, and Greg Olsen actually said it that they have the lowest payroll on the offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tim, at one point in that game yesterday, Rico Dowdle, the former AC Reynolds star that went to South Carolina and was also a star there, played for the Cowboys, now he's playing for the Panthers, had 13 carries of 7 yards or more.
Wow.
And at that point, Dallas had 0. He alone carried the ball 13 times where he picked up at least 7 yards. So going back to Coach's point about the offensive line, they did a tremendous job run blocking yesterday and have for the last 2 weeks for Rico Dowdle.
First player since 1970, undrafted player, since 1970 to have 200-plus total yards back-to-back weeks. I mean, he's phenomenal. We knew he had the potential, and he told Dallas, I'm coming. I'm going to strap it on. And the thing that blew my mind is Dallas really didn't accept the challenge, David. And who would have thought mid-October the Panthers are 3-3, you're going to play the Jets. Now, the Panthers, ladies and gentlemen, don't get too excited because they've been horrible on the road this year, but this is a winnable game. And, David, you got a chance to be 4-3 through 7 weeks of the NFL season. Some positive things happening, but can you keep it up? And, again, what do you do when you get Hubbard back in this offense with what Rico's doing?
Yep. All right, let's look around the league just a little bit. You got some 5-1 teams that are still impressive. I mean, how about the Indianapolis Colts at 5-1? Coach, can they continue, or are they a little bit of a, paper tiger after all their schedule's not very
Yeah,
strong?
I mean, that's the thing about them, and you got to remember what NFL stands for, not for long. And things just change very quickly in the NFL. Injuries, things of this nature. It just does. It's hard to keep that momentum for the number of weeks that they have to be engaged.
Yeah, Dave, what about Baltimore 1-5? It's just a train wreck right now. Kansas City, big win, big fight after the game, which was kind of crazy. I thought it was a great win for the LA Chargers, the move they had. And Detroit's still a good team, but I still wonder about them on the road against big teams.
Yeah, but don't look past the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, the former Carolina Panther, who was running the scout team for Carolina. That doesn't say a whole lot about the Panthers management for letting him get down there to South Florida. And anyway, that's all the time we got for this week. Be with us next week right here on Armchair Quarterback.